Welcome to Old Stonewell Farm. You caught me just as I was doodling and writing down some thoughts here. And for those of you who have been coming to Old Stonewell Farm and wondered what happened to my quill and my ink well, I am practicing still writing with a quill, but to really get things done, I have gone into the modern age here and recently ordered this tablet. Now, it's not an iPad, it's not connected to the internet or Facebook or social media, anything like that at all. It's simply an electronic tablet that has the feel of writing on paper, and it sounds like a pencil on paper. And the great thing about this is that you can save everything that you write in one place, and you can then email it to your laptop if you need an electronic version of it. Now, the reason why I ordered this, much to my husband's chagrin, was because I find to really brainstorm, to really dream, to map out my dreams, I tend to like to have a good old-fashioned piece of paper and a pencil and just to scribble and to write and to journal. I just love that. But the problem is I always have tons of scrap paper all around with, a sentence here, an idea there. And just the other day, I looked at my desk and it was just filled with paper and I couldn't find what I was looking for. And as a reporter, an editor, I still, when I interview people, I still do it the old-fashioned way. I still have my reporter's notebook and a pen. But what's happening is I can't find all these pieces of paper. I just don't have a great filing system. So I decided to try this tablet that feels like paper, and then you can just write and then save, and then everything is here and organized, which I hope it helps me with my creativity. And the good thing about this is that you aren't interrupted by having access to social media or emails. So it really just leaves you alone with your creative thoughts. I think about the dreams we have and the ones that we need to resurrect. In this season of resurrection, what is the new life that Jesus is inviting us into? Eleanor Roosevelt once said that the future belongs to those who dream. Well, the future does belong to those who dare to dream, and I think more and more about Jesus's friends as they encountered the risen Lord before he ascended into heaven and before they were filled with the Pentecost Holy Spirit to give them everything that they needed to be the hands and feet of Christ. But before that, they met the risen Lord again, and they heard once again that they had it in them to do these great big dreams, these God dreams, to be the peacemakers in the world, to be the ones that love others, to be the ones that make the world a better place. And so here at the farm, we're going to be talking about dreams and the need to resurrect them, the need to believe in them, the need to believe in God. And I'm going to share with you one of those dreams that has come back once again to me, and I ponder, what is God asking? And so, my friends, this is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice, let us dream, and be glad in it.
After these things, Jesus showed himself again to the disciples by the Sea of Tiberias, and he showed himself in this way. Gathered there together were Simon Peter, Thomas called the twin, Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and 2 others of his disciples. Simon Peter said to them, "I am going fishing." They said to him, "We will go with you." They went out and got into the boat, but that night they caught nothing. Just after daybreak, Jesus stood on the beach, but the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to them, "Children, you have no fish, have you?" They answered him, "No." He said to them, "Cast the net to the right side of the boat, and you will find some." So they cast it, and now they were not able to haul it because there were so many fish. That disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, "It is the Lord." When Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he put on some clothes, for he was naked, and jumped into the sea. But the other disciples came in the boat, dragging the net full of fish, for they were not far from the land, only about 100 yards off.
I've always loved these 50 days of Easter because I've always found myself so drawn to the stories of how Jesus meets people. The risen Lord meets them where they are, and he opens their mind once again to all the lessons that he taught them while he was physically alive. I love these 50 days because these are days in which I allow myself to really dream big once again. I know it sounds maybe perhaps a little silly that, we can dream whenever, but as we get older, we often find ourselves thinking that dreaming might be a little bit childish. And so for me, these 50 days of Easter is a time to really allow myself the pleasure and the space to dream and to dream big. And I love hearing the stories of how Jesus encourages his followers to open up their minds once again, to open up their hearts and dream and believe. Today we get the story of Jesus meeting his friends who are back to fishing, and he stands on the shore and he calls them, "Hey, did you catch anything?" And they were at it all night and they didn't. And so Jesus shouts from the shore, "Throw your net on the other side of the boat." And I guess maybe Jesus could hear the eye roll, like, what is this guy asking of us? We've been at this all night. We know what we're doing. We're fishermen. But they do listen to that person calling on the shore to throw your net on the other side of the boat, and they listen, and what we're told is that all of a sudden the net just is filled with fish to the point where it's going to break. I love this particular story because, well, for several reasons. First, it shows you how easily we fall back to what is comfortable. It shows you how easily that when we are downtrodden, or when it seems like a dream failed or a situation didn't pan out as we wanted it to pan out, like for Jesus's friends, they just saw their friend, crucified, and yes, they have had encounters with him and they've heard stories of him being alive, but it still really didn't sink in as to what their next steps would be without their friend and their teacher with them as he was before. And so they go back to what they know, fishing. And in a way, it's like the whole story of the disciples has come full circle, because in the very beginning of the journey, Jesus calls them to say, "Hey, follow me, and we'll fish for people." And then begins the 3-year journey of traveling and teaching and healing and being prepared for such a moment as this. But when everything seems to fall apart, when the impossible does seem impossible, we tend to go back to what is comfortable, to what we know, what is easy. And so they went back to fishing during this time of resurrection. They did not have it in them to really go forth and to believe and to dream, and they go back to what they know. And Jesus meets them there. That's the other thing I love about this. Even when I might go back to what is comfortable, even when I might not have the strength to move forward and to embrace dreams or to embrace the new, scary, unsure future, even when I decide to just play it safe, Jesus meets me. Jesus meets me where I'm at, and he doesn't say, "Donna, what are you doing?" Rather he invites me to go deeper in faith, as he invited his friends to go deeper in faith by saying, "Hey, throw your net, cast your net on the other side of the boat. Listen to me, trust me, do something different than what you have already done, because it's not getting you anywhere. Cast your net on the other side." Now, the miracle here wasn't that the net filled with fish, hundreds and hundreds of fish. The miracle was the fact that they listened and they did what their Savior told them to do. And because of that, because they listened to the advice of throw your net someplace else, stop going to the same old, they saw that there was abundance. They saw that there was hope. They saw what God's Son could do. I love this story because it reminds me that we have a tendency, when it all seems very difficult, to revert back to what was comfortable. But it reminds me too that that's okay. God will meet us there. And God will continue to encourage us to move forward. And it also reminds me, when things aren't working out or when things just seem to be stuck, stop relying on my own knowledge, my own ideas. Trust God and try something different. Easter is a time of resurrection, and that has been on my mind a lot. It seems after 2 years of living in a pandemic, the world is resurrecting. We're coming back to life, but what is that life going to be? That's the question that I have. So for me this year, there was the resurrection of all resurrections, Jesus. A reminder that there is life after death, that death will never have the last word, that God can be trusted. His promises are so true, and that there's nothing to fear. And so for me this year, you have the resurrection of Easter. And then I think about the ultimate resurrection, that when we die, that we will too also have new life. We will rise to new life. But this year especially, I'm thinking about the resurrection here and now. The resurrection that I'm being invited into. The resurrection that you are being invited into right now. As the world opens up, what is that world going to be? Are you going to trust Jesus, who stands on the shore of wherever you might be, shouting to you, try something different, trust me. I have it all under control. Lean into my wisdom. Lean into my grace. Lean into the plans I have for you. And so what resurrection dreams are you needing to live? I have this little Irish cottage, thatched roof cottage, a porcelain one, that my mom bought for me many, many years ago. And it's a little keepsake box. And I haven't really put anything in it. But this year I'm going to, because this dream of having an Irish cottage with a thatched roof has been resurrected once again. You see, every few years, my husband and I will go on the internet and look for these cottages that are for sale in Ireland. Now, I've had several friends who have purchased cottages in Ireland. In fact, one of my first bosses at Fairchild Publications, I worked for Footwear News, and she was the fashion director, and she was there for many, many years, and a wonderful woman. And she had a cottage. She, early on in her 20s, she bought a cottage by herself in Ireland. And so every summer she would go. And I was always intrigued by that she had this little home. And so every so often, my husband and I will get into one of those places where we start to dream about all the possibilities, the what ifs. Could we do this? Of course, we do disagree as to what is a good property. I have forwarded him email and pictures of these beautiful cottages from like the 13th century, the 15th century, on a big bluff overlooking the water, and really beautiful, iconic Irish setting. And so I email him these pictures, and he comes back to me. He's like, Donna, this is a pile of rocks. I'm like, it's a fixer-upper. So we don't see eye to eye on as to what is a property that is defined as a fixer-upper and what is actually livable. I love it though. But I see a pile of rocks and rubble. I see the possibilities. I can dream as to how that pile of rocks can be resurrected into an Irish cottage once again. My husband sees it as just, let's just, move on. But every so often I look at those Irish cottages and I think, why not? And once again, this year, that dream of having an Irish cottage has been resurrected. And I don't want to be afraid of moving. I don't want to be afraid of making a mistake. I want to live boldly. I want just to trust, because if I don't do something like this, then I often think of, then what are the people? Who are the people? What are the situations that I'm never going to experience, or the people I'm never going to meet that God wanted me to meet? You just don't know what God has planned for you. And if you don't trust those dreams in God's hands, place them in God's hands, then I always wondered, what are the God opportunities, the God moments that I might be missing if I fear my own dreams? Will I ever move to Ireland and have a cottage with a thatched roof? I don't know. I don't want to say chances are not, but you see, I want to get to that place where I really do trust my risen Lord and Savior. Like I said, Eleanor Roosevelt once said that the future belongs to dreamers. Well, Jesus saw his friends and he knew that the future belonged to them. But they had to trust their dreams of a more just world. They had to trust their dreams of hope for everybody, love for everybody. They had to trust their dreams of a better society for them and their family and their families and their relatives. They had to trust the dream of God's kingdom coming true. And Jesus sees them, knowing in them is the future of God's kingdom. But they need to not be afraid of all the possibilities. It's funny, when I was doing some research on Irish cottages with thatched roofs, well, not only is the thatched roof cottage very iconic when it comes to the Irish countryside, but there's a lot of history behind it as well. For example, thatched roofs they were really a sign of poverty in the Tudor time, because then people would have more stone on their, slate roofs and so forth. So a thatched roof was a sign of you didn't really have money. But also too, though, on the flip side, having such a cottage, finally owning one, was a moment of great pride for a lot of Irish families in the 19th century, because a lot of them couldn't afford land or a home. So many of these cottages were rented. The other thing I learned was that in an 1851 census, most of Ireland's population, well, about maybe 40% plus, a good chunk, lived in a 1 or 2 room thatched cottage. Now, think about that. 1 or 2 rooms, they were small to begin with. And they would have about 6 or 7 children, and pigs and their chickens would live with them as well. The pig, usually the house pig, usually slept in the corner, and people would say, "Oh, that's the gentleman who pays the rent." Go figure. But the cottages, not only the thatched roof, but they are also known to have very few windows. And so very dark and drab, and a reason why a lot of people don't want to live in them anymore. But the reason for the lack of windows, it wasn't just to keep the fire, the warmth from the fire inside the home. But from 1799 to about the early 1850s, I think, there was a window tax. The British government actually taxed people who lived in a cottage on the amount of windows that they had. So if you had 6 or more windows, you had to pay a window tax. So a lot of things, a lot of history, a lot we can learn by these thatched cottages when you really look into it. But for now, I've had this little cottage for many years. As I said, my mom got it for me. And I never kept anything in it. It's a keepsake. But I think in this season of Easter, I'm going to handwrite my dream of having my own Irish cottage. And I'm going to place it in this little cottage. And then I'm going to pray. And I'm going to continue to dream boldly. But most of all, with all the dreams that are begging to be resurrected in my heart, I'm going to trust that those dreams, God will shine light on them in some way or another. Who knows what tomorrow will bring? In the season of Easter, as the disciples go back to what they know, fishing, Jesus interrupts them and stands on the shore, and he says, "What are you doing? Did you catch anything?" "No, we didn't." "Well, that's because you went back to the same old, same old. You're not trusting me. If you really want to catch a lot, then listen. Listen to your risen Lord. And then throw your net over on the other side. Throw your net in a different place. Do something different. Revive an old dream. Dare to think how to live differently, how to love differently." My friends, whatever it might be, it's the season of resurrection. Yes, the resurrection. Christ is alive. But it is a season right now to resurrect the dreams that you've been carrying in your heart. Can you imagine Old Stonewall Farm from a thatched cottage in Ireland? I can. Maybe instead of calling our time together Old Stonewall Farm, it will be the old thatched cottage. Who knows? The possibilities are endless. My friends, what are the dreams God is asking for you to resurrect in this Easter tide? I would love to hear from you. And if you enjoy this time together, then I invite you to subscribe to this YouTube channel or share it with friends, because I do enjoy hearing from you. And I love hearing the God moments from all around the country and even from around the world. Believe it or not, there's been other viewers in other parts of this world. And so let's go forth and listen to our risen Lord's voice. Thanks be to God.
Be thou my vision, O Lord of my heart, not be all else to me, save that thou art. sleeping, thy presence my life. Be thou my wisdom, and thou my true word. I ever with thee, and thou with me, Lord. Thou my great Father, I thy true Son. High King of heaven, my treasure thou art. The Lord bless you and keep you. Make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn